Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enlightenment Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enlightenment Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightenment Podcast. I'm your host, Jen, here with a solo snippet for today where I threw out to Instagram on my personal and the podcast Instagram pages to ask me questions. And this could be about anything, and I haven't done one of these for a little while, so I got quite a few questions come through on the socials. So I'm going to go through as many as I can in probably, I'm going to try and keep it about 10 minutes because I aim to keep these episodes nice and short. Okay, so I think we'll start with the most common question that's popped up is around dating. So at time of recording, so what is it today, the 28th of February, 2024, yes, I am dating somebody. Not going to give too many details away at this stage. We try to keep our private lives very private, but I am exclusively dating someone who I met them online, actually, so it wasn't through a dating app. I actually slid into their DMs on Instagram. So I have a general rule of thumb when it came to dating that the egg don't chase the sperm. So if a guy wanted to get to know me, he had to pursue me. However, it was me that found his account, which was, by the way, set to private. I only saw his profile picture, sent him a request, and then started a conversation with him a couple of days later. So yeah, it works. One of the other questions that came up was, do you find it hard to be spiritual and be dating? Are there single men out there? So that's kind of two questions in one. So the person I'm dating is not spiritual in the way that I am. So everyone's version of spirituality is different for them. So my version of spirituality is going to be different to absolutely everybody who's listening to this, and their version of spirituality. And so the spiritual beliefs that I have, the rituals that I have to connect with my spirituality, the way in which I view the world, the way in which I view lives and lifetimes and God and the universe, all of that is very different to the person that I'm dating. So there is, I enjoy this because we've got very different views of the world, and it opens us up to be in contrast, to be able to learn from each other. You know, we sit at quite, on some topics, we sit in quite sort of polarizing positions. However, I actually enjoy understanding another person's perspective and being able to relate with someone who doesn't necessarily have to have the same beliefs as I do. So when it comes to dating somebody, whether, it's exclusively or open relating or, being in a relationship with somebody, I like to meet someone with very similar sets of values. Okay, so values is really, really big for me. We've talked about what we value in partnership. We've talked about what we value in life, and then, be able to find common ground through that. Spirituality isn't one of the things where it's a deal breaker for me. So they don't have to be into all of the things that I'm into. They don't have to have all the practices that I have to connect with that. A couple of times I have dated, what we can call spiritual people. Clearly that didn't work out. It was nice to have certain things in common, but you can't expect someone to be a certain way. You can't expect someone to tick every single box or be exactly like you. And I think if we dated people that were exactly like us, things would be very boring. I like, the spice of, conscious conflict and being able to have different views of the world and still be able to share those views with each other and learn from each other and meet together in conversation to be like, hey, what do you think about this, what do you think about that? And it's okay to have conflicting beliefs, but then still be able to meet on the same levels of values. So that's something that I prioritize when relating with someone, is we've got common values in life. Doesn't have to be spirituality. So I did find it difficult last year when I opened myself up onto dating apps, though. I did put on there that I was spiritual. It did attract some people to respond to my profile who were spiritual too. But I also found, and this is a very generalizing statement, I also found a lot of people to be quite flaky, or they wanted to be like, it's like we were having like a spirituality off. Like we were like, okay, so like, what are you into? Who's more spiritual? And that just does not spark joy for me. So for me, it's not necessarily to be like with a spiritual man. It's someone who is, self-aware, connected, aligned values, that kind of thing. To be able to answer the question, are there single spiritual men out there? Yes, of course there are. There are people everywhere. You just have to go sliding into their DMs, apparently. Okay, so next question. How are you? I actually really like this question because I know who this question's from, and I know that this is not just a general how are you, it's a proper how are you. So I'm actually really grateful for this question. I'm good. I'm really good. I am a little bit tired at the moment. I have a lot on. I've got my book launch coming out shortly. So I've co-authored a book, which I'll speak a bit into more shortly. I have just been flat out just with clients, building a new coaching program, putting together resources, working some early mornings, evenings, obviously working on the podcast, kids, mum life. So it's just been me and the kids, obviously living together since last year after I went through a separation. So just navigating what that looks like, and then obviously having to do pretty much everything. So I'm doing, all of the school pickup and drop off on the days that I have the kids, all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, all of the household stuff, like just all the stuff for the things. It's just life stuff. And sometimes it's really fast paced and I freaking love it. And look, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I consider hiring an au pair to come look after me. Oh, and the children. Mostly me though. I just want someone to come and cook for me and tuck me into bed at night. But yes, I'm really loving the work that I get to do. So I have a new coaching program that I'm working on at the moment, which I'm really, really excited and passionate about. I've also got, like I mentioned, a co-authored book coming out very shortly. So lots happening, speaking at events and just putting things into place for, stuff coming up this year, which I'm really excited for. So at times it is a little bit challenging. I'm not going to lie. It is a lot of energy out, but I'm also really, really mindful to be nourishing myself a lot. Like that's a big one for me. So nourishing myself with good food, with good water, with rest, with cacao, and, just filling my cup up so that it can spill out from overflow. What has been my biggest challenge this year so far? Gosh, I would say just finding a routine that works and also having to be flexible when things change. So it's almost like I get into a routine and then I have a change of clients. Like I've been seeing more in-person clients now, and I've also been going out to client locations to meet people sort of offsite. So that's been really, really cool. But it's been a bit of a challenge to navigate routine and fitting all of the stuff into 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think that's probably been my biggest challenge. Is co-parenting hard to navigate? Gosh, I could probably do a whole episode on this alone. In fact, I probably might. In fact, my ex, my kid's dad, and I, we actually started recording a video series years ago after we had split up. I should find out what happened to that. I don't even know whether the memory card would be that had the recording on it, but we were going to put out a video series on YouTube about how we co-parent and how we navigated that, because we've been separated for over 6 years now. We co-parent like superstars. It hasn't always been that way. We've always been very amicable. And look, we still sometimes lock heads when we go to make decisions, and we have to, keep in mind that we're both got the children's best interests at heart. We can't make it about ourselves. So I might just look at doing a whole episode dedicated to that. What is your book about? So I have been speaking about my book on social media a little bit. So it is a co-authored book. It's called Wild Eros, The Power of Pleasure, and I am so excited for the release of this. So I have contributed a chapter of about 5,000 words, and each author had to share a story of theirs. And for me, it was about sharing my experience with my first ayahuasca journey, which was really, really special. It's very, very close to my heart. It was a real edge to be able to share this, and I'm so excited for it. So leading into the launch of that in the next couple of weeks, I'll definitely be doing another solo episode to tell you a bit more about that and how you can get your hands on a copy of that as well. There will also be a resource available on my website that will support the chapter that I've written to be able to help out anyone who's been going through anything that I've mentioned in the chapter that would like some support. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. Favorite position? CEO. My favorite, I'm assuming we're talking sexual positions here. Very cute. My favorite position would have to be when he's on his knees worshipping the ground that I walk on, because he knows the queen that I am. Next question. Actually, it's not a question, it's a statement. It literally says not a question, just a fact. You're fire, and 2 flame emojis. Haha, heard that on Australian Idol. That was from one of my clients. Thank you so much. That's really sweet. And one last question before we wrap up. I want to get more into spirituality, but I don't know where to start. Any tips? That's kind of a big one. I could probably do a whole episode on that one as well. So if you go back to episode 7 of the podcast, so in season 1, it was one of my ones from the very early days. I talk about what is spirituality, and to date, that is the most clicked on episode. So obviously there's a lot of people very curious about spirituality, wondering what it is. So in that episode, you'll hear me talk about, spirituality is whatever you decide it to be. And so for me, like, I've been on a spiritual journey, and I put that, spiritual in inverted commas, at the best of times, because there's so much meaning that we can think that we can give to spirituality, but there's nothing that truly defines it. It's whatever helps us get the answers that we're seeking within ourselves, or find the peace that we need to find within ourselves, or to connect with something beyond ourselves as well. It's whatever you decide it to be. So for me, spirituality is awareness of consciousness, of connection to source, to, discovering ways in which I can learn things that just simply make sense to me, and they don't have to be everybody else's version of spirituality. And, ultimately that's what I want to empower people to do, is to find for themselves what that is. It doesn't have to be someone else's view. It doesn't mean that you have to be using tarot cards or doing meditations or going to psychics or putting crystals all through your house, or doing things a certain way, or praying, or you're referring to a man in the sky as God. It's whatever you decide it to be. It's not what someone else has told you that it is. You get to decide for yourself what that is. And I think that's ultimately true sovereignty, is when we can have these thoughts and belief systems that are our own, that aren't programmed into us from, the external world around us. And so for me, spirituality is about going inwards and discovering who I am. And I certainly use tools like all of the, a lot of the things that I mentioned. Like, I love using tarot cards. I love using oracle cards. I love having crystals around my house. Like, there's definitely divination tools that I use in order to help me get there. But that in itself is not spirituality. It helps me understand what spirituality is, but it's not actually what spirituality is to me. So I might even do another follow-up episode on that, because I have a lot to say on this topic. And I think there's a lot of people that get really curious about this question as well. So that's gone a little bit longer than I expected it to. But thank you so much to everyone that sent in questions. Sorry if I couldn't get to yours, but it's been so much fun answering these on this solo snippet. So I will see you in the next one. Sending you so much love from my heart to yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.